Good morning and welcome to Live Without Limits, the Success Shift. Think like your future self. I'm your host, David Ashinsky, and today we're diving into one of the most transformative topics we will ever explore together: identity. Who you believe you are, what you believe you're allowed to become, and how those beliefs quietly shape every action you take, every decision you make, and every result that you see in your life. Before you can redesign your life, you must first redesign the story that you tell about yourself. Today's episode is emotional, powerful, and deeply personal for both of us because identity is the one thing that most people never question, yet it determines everything. So take a breath, settle into the moment, and let's talk about how to shift your identity into the version of you that lives without limits. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story that really kind of helps you here because it helps you understand how you identify with yourself. As a child, we may not understand what our true identity is, but people will put labels on you simply because of what they see. And if you have a parent that's negative and they see themselves in a bad way, then what are they going to do? They're going to be just as negative to you. They're going to tell you negative things. They're going to put you down and they're going to label you. And when this happens, you turn around and buy into it. So that's the picture of what you see. That's where the laws of attraction comes in, because when you put out negative things come back to you. So, I want to start with a personal story, one that defined my understanding of identity before I had the language for it. There was a time in my life when I felt like my entire identity was built around limitations, not because I chose them, but because they were given to me. Messages like, you can't, you shouldn't, you're not capable of that. People like you don't do things like this. And what it is that I was raised in an era when society did not accept or did not even recognize its disability community. And because I grew up with a disability, I was often ostracized by everyone around me. And yet, that doesn't even fit into what my personality is, because my personality is to to interact with people, to talk to people. And yet, it was slow, and when I was in school, I was teased or I was laughed at or I was made fun of simply because I was different. And then I grew up in a home that was so negative that all my mother ever did was tell me how I was going to fail. And that's really, she was coming out of her own mindset, not and didn't really understand who I was or what I was truly capable of. And really, when I started college and she started telling me how I was going to fail, I just literally told her, shut up, because you don't know what I can or can't do. And sometimes you have to take that approach. Anyway, for years, I believed these messages not because they were true, but because they were handed to me by others who didn't understand my vision. One day, I remember looking in the mirror and thinking, this isn't who I really am. This is who I've been taught to be. It hit me. My identity wasn't built by me. It was built by expectations, by other people's fears, by society's labels. by limitations I didn't ask for. That was the first step I needed, and the first time I asked myself, who can I say I am? Not the world, not the past, not my wounds, not my circumstances, but me. And that question changed everything. It was the beginning of my identity, the moment that I stopped living from the version of me shaped by the past, started stepping into the version built for my future. Identity is not fixed, identity is chosen. And today, I want to show you how to choose differently. And I remember saying to myself, why me? Why me? And I came up that there was a reason why me, that I had something to give back. And you don't always know as a child what your true identity is or what your true purpose in life is, but it kind of falls on you through different things that happen to you over time. This is why we often need to think about the things that influence us. And today's show is titled The Identity Shift, Becoming the Person You Want to Be. And this is so important because we all need to learn about ourselves, about who we are, and be true. Because, first of all, when you take an assessment profile that helps you understand your personality, or rather your behavioral traits, what are you doing? And I'm going to talk about the four pure. You've got the dominant personality that feels they can control everything. You've got the I personality, which is the interpersonal skills. You've got the C personality, which is the conscientiousness personality, or the personality that questions everything before they make a decision. And then you've got the S of the steadiness personality. And that person literally does things by the book. And they have to be they're very straightforward. Now, the S and the C are very much introverts. The D and the I are very much extroverts. Now, we have all of these within us. Some of them are our strengths, some of them are our weaknesses. That's why we tend to attract people who are total opposites, because then we know how to literally work together. Identity is the root system of your life. Just like a tree grows from what's beneath the surface, your actions grow from the identity that you hold inside yourself. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you'll struggle. If you see yourself as someone who's always overwhelmed, your life will create overwhelm. If you see yourself as someone who just can't change, not because you're incapable, but because your identity doesn't support the change, here's the truth. You will never outperform your identity. You will never outgrow the story you tell about yourself until you rewrite it. Identity is what you believe you deserve, what you believe you're capable of, what you believe is possible for you, what you believe is for people like you. Identity is the lens you see yourself through. When that lens is distorted by old wounds, shame, fear, or the opinions of others, you shrink your life to fit the version of yourself that isn't even real. But when your lens changes, when your identity shifts, everything else shifts with it. You have to really look within yourself. This is where meditation comes in. This is where we talk about journaling, because if you learn to read your inner thoughts, how you think, how you see yourself in the mirror, and remember, the limitations that are put on you may not be your true limitations. They're the limitations that someone else has put on you, that you have identified with and accepted. One thing that I learned when I was in school, because my disability affects how what I learned goes from short-term memory into long-term memory. If I just read something, if I just hear it, it's not going to get into that long-term memory. And my grades never truly showed what I was truly capable of. But once I got out of that environment and I started taking and implementing and using the skills that I was learning, then I was able to succeed as easily as anyone else. It's a matter of you knowing who you are and how your mind works, because some people are real intrinsic thinkers. Some people can, we all learn differently. And the sad part is, in the classroom, they can only teach in a cookie cutter way, and they don't give you individual attention when you really need it. And therefore, when you learn something, you may not learn at the same pace as someone else. The old identity versus the empowered identity. Let's break down the difference. The old identity. This is the version of you shaped by childhood conditioning, family expectations, trauma, fear, judgment, labels, past failures, social pressure. This identity is survival based. It's cautious. It's fearful. It's self protective. It says things like, I've always been this way. That's just who I am. I could never do that. That's not for me. This is the identity that keeps you stuck. The empowered identity. This is the version of you aligned with your potential, not your past. It speaks differently. I'm capable of more. I can grow. I got to choose. I'm not defined by what happened to me. I am becoming the person I want to be. The empowered identity isn't just a positive thinking, it's a shift in how you see yourself. Your identity changes the moment you say, I'm not my past story. I'm the author of my future one. Often, even when you work in a company, you may be hired or have certain expectations of what you want to do or how you want to perform. And then your manager may expect something totally, totally different in how you see yourself, in how you want to perform. And that can be a conflict. That's why understanding different personalities, understanding your strengths, understanding someone else's strengths, understanding how to talk to them in their language makes for a better relationship, whether it's personal or whether it has anything to do with business. Because especially in sales, because you want to sell to someone in a way that they understand. Because if you're talking to someone who is very detail oriented, but you don't get into detail when you present your sales pitch, well, then what happens? They start asking questions, and they will keep asking questions until they understand everything. That's why it is important to understand how to communicate to an individual in their language. Now, let's talk about a deeper transformation moment. There was a season in my life when people expected very little from me, and I realized something painful. People built expectations based on their own limitations, not your potential. When I built my coaching business, when I stepped onto stages, when I began helping people rewrite their own identity, I wasn't becoming someone new. I was finally becoming myself, the version of me that had been buried under layers of doubt and external opinions. Identity isn't about building from the outside in, it's about revealing what was already true inside you. When I couldn't find gainful employment and I was looking for how to use my education and my skills, I realized that I shone more when I was often in front of the group giving a book report. So that showed me in a way that becoming a professional speaker and a trainer in the HR industry is where my goals were. But for me, because I struggled with the educational part of it, once I finished my graduate degree, the next thing I did was I start getting certified. Now, here's the thing. When I started my business in the late 70s, early 1980s, you didn't have the technology you have today. Everything was done offline. To promote myself as a speaker, I needed a one page, I needed a video, I needed certain things that I could send out to a company and promote myself and show, and then come in and do a presentation. So that was a lot of that was money up front before I could even get my foot in the door. Today, if I was starting my business, all I would have to do is what I'm currently doing. And one of the reasons that I started a podcast when I did, back when it was in its infancy and before it ever got the term podcast, when it was just known as talk radio or internet radio, that the reason I went into it was simply that if I wanted to present something to someone, all I had to do was say, here's my podcast, go listen to it. And I started it on Blog Talk Radio. And Blog Talk Radio was around for like 15 years and went out of business about 2 years ago in January, because more and more people, especially with YouTube, we're starting to do more video podcasts, more interviewing podcasts, which you couldn't, all you had through Blog Talk Radio was voiceover. It was not anything done where you could see me talking to you, or I can interact with my audience in the same way that I can through the system that I use today. So understanding exactly how everything has changed and how technology has improved how we learn. A clear and actionable framework in the identity shift process. Here's the step by step process you can begin today. Awareness. What is identity? And the identity that you're living from now. Ask yourself, what do I believe about myself? Where did those beliefs come from? Are they actually mine? Release. Let's go of borrowed identity. Let go of the labels. Let go of the voices. Let go of the inherited limitations. Choose, who do you want to be? Write it out. I am becoming someone who. I choose to be someone who. And one thing that I know was from the time that I was a young child, often I would try to help someone in need. And I understood that. Now, when I first started college and went into psychology and mental health, it was initially to understand myself and what was going on in the family and why I had such low self esteem and how I could change it. And back then, you had a the the modalities of psychodrama, transactional analysis, and a lot of those terms are what has transformed what we do in psychology today. That was the beginning of the self-help industry as we know it today. So align. Make choices from your empowered identity. Identity is not just a mindset, it's behavior. Act from your future self, not your past identity. Reinforcement. Repetition creates transformation. You know, they say it takes 21 days to form a habit. And by consciously doing something for 21 days, eventually it gets so into your psyche that you do it automatically and you don't even realize that you're doing it. So identity shifts with consistency. Small actions reinforced big transformations. A moment of reflection, slow, grounding, and therapeutic. Take a deep breath with me. Place your hand over your heart and ask yourself, who am I becoming? And what identity do I need to release so that I can grow? Let the answer rise gently. There's no rush. There's no pressure. There's no possibility. Now, who are you? Are you the person that you truly want to be? If not, let's go inside yourself and let's look at it this way. Write down, look within yourself. You know, your subconscious tells you who you really are, and you have to take what's in your subconscious and get it into your consciousness. And by doing so, it helps you find your identity. So identity is a choice, a daily choice, a brave choice. You don't become your empowered self all at once. You become them in moments. Moments when you speak differently, choose differently, think differently, believe differently. The identity shift is not a single transformation, it is a series of small acts of courage that tell the universe, I'm ready, and you are. You're more ready than you know. You're being the person that you want to be. You're being that person that helps you become. So remember, and this is why we talk about affirmations, because if, and I'm going to go back to this, we go back to transactional analysis. It talks about the adult or the parent, the adult, and the child. The parent is the one that says you should. Those are the things that you're helping yourself to hear and think. Now, this, what we also need to remember is the things that people tell us as children and we begin to believe, those are the things that we keep telling ourselves. That's what we're hearing, that's what we're telling ourselves. So you got to reprogram all those thoughts to change things so that you can change your identity and begin to believe who it is that you truly want to be. So, and once you change the thought processes, then you begin to think differently, and then you begin to believe differently. So remember, one thing moves into the other thing, moves into the other thing. It's a progression. Now, if you're ready to step into a new identity this year and you're writing a book, building a brand, or sharing your story, one of the most powerful ways to amplify your message is through an audiobook. So I'm now offering a professional audiobook creation services, and you don't have to record a single word. I'll create a free custom sample of your book so that you can hear exactly how it will sound in a professional audiobook format. To get you your sample, just send me a message saying, send me my audiobook sample. Include your book title, the first 2 to 3 paragraphs, and I'll take care of the rest. So thank you for joining me today on Live Without Limits. And remember, you are not defined by your past. You are defined by your choices, including the choice to create a new identity. So until next time, I'm Davida Shinsky, reminding you to step boldly into the person that you were meant to be and become, and always be, as always, live without limits. Because when you learn to live without limits, then you can become that true person. So remember, when you change yourself, you are creating a success shift. And then you begin to think like your future self, because who you are today, and let me also put it this way, the experiences you have today change who you are tomorrow, and recognize that this is how everyone else sees you now, how you see yourself, and how you become your true self. And I'm going to finish off by telling you a story of how I changed. One thing that I found was that I lived in a family that was very, very toxic. I can remember being that 12-year-old child who was constant being disciplined because I was the bad one. And literally, what was happening was I had a sister that was allowed to get away with everything she did, and all the bad things she was doing, it was always being placed on me. Therefore, what happened? I had to learn to understand what was going on, change things, and make me be responsible for me and not allowing others to dictate how I live my life. My mother was the most negative person, and all she could ever do was criticize and be negative and would never change. And she was never going to help me unless I lived in the house with her. And for the identity of who I wanted to be and how I saw myself, I knew that was the worst thing I can do. And because I have a disability, I was not getting the best paid jobs and often. And literally, what happened was because I couldn't find gainful employment, I just went into starting my own business. It's not a way to do it. Often, most people will go and work for a company, work their way up, build some financial security, and then use that money to go out and establish your business. I didn't have that option, so I had to figure out how to make it all work. And it was a struggle. But once the technology came into it, then it opened up how I could work and how I could build my business. So think about those things. Think about what it is and what your identity is and how you can, as it says behind me, invest in yourself.